Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel, and I am here to discuss all of the LGBT releases for the month of October. This is something that I've implemented on my channel over the last couple months, and I've really been enjoying it because it's a great way to encourage people to read queer all year and to support new and upcoming authors, as well as supporting our old faves that are coming out with new releases. If I sound a little stuffy, I once again have a sinus infection. This happens every time the Santa Ana winds come around for me, and it's awful. But anyway, let's get into the books that are releasing this month. So October, it's finally spooky season, but of course with publishing, we are a couple months ahead of that. So for the last couple months, I've had a lot of horror recs. So if you're looking for more of those spooky reads, definitely check out the last couple videos that I did. But there are still a couple in here, but we're also gearing up for the biggest season of book buying, which is of course the Christmas and holiday time. So there are some holiday books, but also just a lot of big releases in anticipation for the buying season. But we also, again, have a couple spooky releases kind of coming in at the last minute here. But I have a lot of reads, so we're going to go through these quickly. And as for where I attain my information, I get all of my young adult titles from a blog called Bird Books. I will leave them in the description so you can check them out. And then all of my adult releases come from the Literary Journal, where they do pub alerts. You can just type in pub alerts and it'll come right up for you for the month. And then I cross-reference that with Goodreads. Again, if something is missing, it could be because of that. I also try to look into the book and the author to see if I think something sounds queer and it's not listed as. I try and figure it out. But if something is missing, I would love other sites that you guys use. But so far, these are the two best sites and method that I found for curating the releases. So let's start off with our first Tuesday of the month, which is October 7th. And our first book that is releasing is going to be Herculine by Grace Byron. And this is listed as adult, horror, and then queer/lesbian or sapphic. It looks like this is a debut author. The description is a young trans woman arrives at a all-trans girl commune founded by her toxic ex-girlfriend, and they are discovering demons, both literal and figurative. And it looks like they are coming after her next. The next book we have is If the Dead Belong Here by Carson Faust, and this is listed as horror, indigenous, and mystery thriller. This is one of the titles that was not listed as LGBT, but I looked into the author and the book itself, and in interviews this talks about being queer and two-spirit, and the description reads as, when a young girl goes missing, the ghosts of her past collide with her family's secrets in a mesmerizing Native American Southern Gothic novel. And we don't get a ton of mystery thrillers for LGBT releases, so this of course is very exciting. Next we have Crafting for Sinners by Jenny Kiefer, and this is listed as horror, queer, fiction, and adult. The description is, a queer woman must fight her way out of a big box craft store run by a diabolical religious cult in this gripping survival horror novel. This sounds really funny and really interesting, so very keen on that. The next book is Her Wicked Roots by Tanya Pell. This is listed as horror, fantasy, and then lesbian, queer, and it is also adult. The description is, in this queer retelling of Nathaniel Hawthorne's classic Gothic novel, Rappaccini's daughter, not the Hawthorne I think of, a young woman is lured into a lush estate owned by a botanist who might be hiding darker secrets. So lush, horror, fantasy, and a very beautiful cover and end pages if you're into that. The next book we have is Queen Demon by Martha Wells. This is a fantasy/sci-fi novel, and it is book 2 in this series. And so all I really know about it is that it's the second book in an adult fantasy series. It's epic fantasy. It's listed as queer, so there is some type of queer element to it. I love Martha Wells' Murderbot, so I'm intrigued to read more stuff by her. I just haven't yet. And we also have another adult fantasy sequel coming out in October, which is going to be A Mouthful of Dust by Neve Vo. This is fantasy, historical fiction, and it is a novella, and this is the 6th in the Singing Hills novella series. Love this series, so I'm definitely going to be reading this one, but it's basically a fantasy series set in a alternate version of medieval China. The next book we have is Gertrude Stein, An Afterlife by Francesca Wade. This is a nonfiction book. It is a biography. It is also listed as light criticism, and of course it's LGBT because it's focusing on Gertrude Stein. I kind of know a little bit about Gertrude Stein, like who she was, but I don't know a lot, so this would be a really interesting book to pick up. The next book we have is Queer Enlightenment, A Hidden History of Lovers, Lawbreakers, and the Homemakers by Anthony Delaney. This is another historical nonfiction, and it looks like it's covering an overlooked history of 11 different stories of 18th century queer people. So this would be a very interesting book because it looks like it's going to be covering a not so talked about era and figures. The next book we have is A Feast for the Eyes by Alex Crespo, and this is a young adult novel, and it looks like it might have horror/fantastical elements. And the tagline for this one is 4 teens must track down a local cryptid that's feeding off secrets before their own hidden truths are exposed. This is another one that was not listed as queer, but the more I looked into it, it looked like there was queer elements to it by what the author discussed, but I don't know a lot about that book, so very intrigued to learn more. The next young adult title we have is No Charm Done by Toni Ann Martin. This is listed as, again, young adult, fantasy, romantasy, and then LGBT/sapphic, and the tagline for this is May the best witch win in this sapphic enemies to lovers rom-com where rival witches hex for the affections of the new boy in school, but are vexed by their interest in each other. So cute rom-com vibe with witchy elements, so that's exciting. Next book we have is Love Stories by Elizabeth Elber. The title on the book itself is The Taylor's Version Love Stories, and the tagline for this is 4 girls all named Taylor make for one unforgettable friendship, and it follows 4 stories of first love, friendship, and heartbreak, and I know that one of the stories is queer, so kind of gives a new version of Sister of the Traveling Pants. Very interesting. The next book we have is Angelica and the Bear Prince. This is by Trung Le Nguyen, and I have read this author's other graphic novel and I absolutely love it, so I'm very interested in picking this up, but it's listed as young adult, a graphic novel, romance, contemporary, and LGBT, and the tagline for this is At her lowest point, a teen finds solace in a potential crush in her local theater's mascot's DMs, marking a quest to uncover the true identity of this mysterious figure. It's listed as LGBT. I'm not sure if this is an MF pairing or a female and non-binary pairing. I can't quite tell from the description or the cover, but I am intrigued. And again, The Magic Fish, one of my favorite novellas. And then the last book for October 7th is Wavelength by Kale Pelt, and this is a young adult queer romance contemporary novel, and this is a story of a teen pop star on the run from fame who finds family, love, gender euphoria when becoming entangled with a local band. And the kind of tag for this is Hannah Montana meets Heartstopper, so very intriguing there. The cover looks super cute and charming, so definitely a good pick for something more lighthearted. To October 14th, we're going to start off with Minor Black Figures by Brandon Taylor. This is fiction or lit fic. It is listed as contemporary and then queer/gay. And this looks like it's about a black painter navigating the worlds of art, desire, and creativity. And he is trying to find his place in the contemporary Manhattan art scene after moving from the South. I've read one of Brandon Taylor's novels/short story collections, so very intrigued to read what looks like a full-length novel from him, but I do want to go back and read his backlist as well. The next book we have is The Leaving Room by Amber McBride. This is YA fantasy/speculative. It's listed as queer/LGBT, and it is a novel in verse. And the description for this is Gospel is the keeper of the leaving room, a place all young people must phase through when they die. The young are never ready to leave. They need a moment to remember and a keeper to help their wispy souls along. Again, this is speculative, so very interesting here. And again, a novel in verse, which we don't see a lot of, so very interesting. The next book we have is Witch Lore by Emma Hinz. This is listed as fantasy, YA, romance, and then queer. This looks like it takes place in our world in Orlando at a college of witchcraft. And our main character is a shapeshifter, which makes him kind of an outcast. And it looks like he does not have control of his magic and shifts from male to female. Their girlfriend dies, and it's considered considered his fault. And then a charming boy comes in who says that they can raise their girlfriend from the dead and figure out, I'm assuming, what happened to her. The next book we have is A Fate Unwoven by Rachel A. Edwards. This is listed as fantasy, queer, and young adult. The description is a heretical storyteller partners with a ancient spirit to undo the magic that subjugates her to the crown, and it is a debut fantasy filled with monsters, forbidden rituals, and corrupt deities. So a little vague, but if you're looking for another YA fantasy, this might be for you. The next YA book we have is Run Away With Me by J.L. Simmons. This is listed as romance, thriller, contemporary, YA of course, and then queer/sapphic. And the tagline is 2 teenage runaways, 1 vintage Mustang, a life-changing road trip, so strap in because this is going to be one hell of a ride. So again, not a lot of description, but very intrigued. The next book we have is I Got My Love to Keep Me Warm by Marima J. Lockington. This is a holiday romance. It's contemporary and it's YA and sapphic. I didn't get a one sentence kind of pitch for this besides one girl likes Christmas, one girl doesn't. It's a dual point of view Christmas holiday. The next book we have is He's So Possessed With Me by Corey Liu, and this is listed as horror, YA, and queer. And the tagline pitch for this is Jennifer's body meets Heartstopper in this terrifying, tender, and bitingly hilarious supernatural horror about a boy who must save his best friend from a demon that wants to steal his heart. Ren says he's in love, but Colin knows better. The next book we have is My Lips, Her Voice by L.L. Madrid, and this is listed as horror, queer, YA, mystery. And the tagline for this is Cooper's city's bloody history is steeped in ghost stories and the whispers of serial killers, but 3 girls have caught the attention of something far more sinister. I think the cover art is really interesting for this one, especially for a YA book, so I'm intrigued by that. But now it is time to move on to October 21st, and we're going to be starting off with The Devil She Knows by Alexandria Bellafleur. This is a fantasy/paranormal romance, sapphic or lesbian representation, and the pitch for this is a down-on-her-luck woman must make a deal with a crafty demon to win back her ex-girlfriend after a proposal gone awry, only to discover that the girl of her dreams might be the devil she knows. This author has written a lot of popular LGBT and sapphic reads. I haven't read from her myself yet, so I'm intrigued by this one. The next book we have is Isn't It Obvious by Rachel Katz. This is another contemporary adult romance. This is a MF romance, but it is about 2 bisexual main characters. And the pitch for this is when high school librarian Yale's secret podcast starts to take off, she decides to hire Kevin, a remote freelance editor/producer, so she can manage juggling her mental health day job and the queer teen book club she's been hosting at school after hours. To maintain her anonymity, they communicate strictly via email, and Kevin only knows her by her podcast persona Elle. So very intrigued by that. The next book we have is This Is the Only Kingdom by Wakira Diaz. This is a contemporary fiction or lit fic book. It is also listed as mystery, and it has LGBT themes. The pitch for this is a epic novel of a mother and daughter wrestling with the aftermath of a murder set against the backdrop of a tight-knit working-class barrio in Puerto Rico. We don't get a lot of lit fic, so it's definitely something interesting to check out. The next book we have is We Had a Hunch by Tom Ryan. This is mystery thriller. It's adult, and it's listed as queer or LGBT. The one sentence pitch for this is what happens when your favorite teenage detective when they grow up. And this is supposed to be like Nancy Drew meets Yellow Jackets, kind of like a Nancy Drew character growing up and then having issues, I'm assuming. The next book we have is Mirage City by Lev Rosen. This is the 4th book in the Evander's Mills series. So this is a mystery series. It is also listed as historical fiction, and it looks like our main character, a private investigator named Andy, goes out of his comfort zone of San Francisco and is taken back home to Los Angeles. And it looks like a queer rights organization is enlisting Andy to look into the missing members of their community. And so dealing with some family stuff and also dealing with like some gang activities perchance. For this one, I'm not sure exactly the historical setting, if it's 50s or like 60s, 70s. I would guess 60s and 70s by the queer rights stuff, but I'm not sure. The next book we have is the much anticipated The Isle in the Silver Sea by Tasha Suri. This is a fantasy lesbian romance. I believe it is a standalone. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it is. It's supposed to be a romantasy with sapphic longing and medieval folklore. before, and I wasn't given a big description for this one, so a little mysterious there. The next book we have is When They Burned the Butterfly by Wen Yi Li. This is listed as historical fiction, fantasy, and lesbian, and this is also our last adult novel for this week. And the tagline for this is a fierce, glamorous sapphic fantasy reimagining the secret societies of post-colonial Singapore. And it looks like it takes place in 1972, and it's also listing as comp titles Jade City, so it might have more of like that gang kind of energy, I'm assuming. Very intrigued there. The next book we have is Most Valuable Player by A.M. Woody. This is another YA romance story, but it's a sports story, and it is a MM romance. And it looks like the cocky star quarterback and the team sarcastic water boy are having like a hate love situation. Very intrigued there because I love a sports story. The next book we have is Don't Forget to Breathe by Sarah Waxelbaum and Brianna Strum. This is a contemporary romance and it's listed as young adult and sapphic. The pitch for this is Zoe always had a plan. Ballet has been her past, present, and future for so long that she never considered otherwise. Yet when senior year arrives, it arrives with a feeling of uncertainty she never expected and a paralyzing fear about choosing the wrong future. It's a very spring-coded YA contemporary, so intrigued there. The next book we have is Our Vicious Descent, which is book 2 in a YA fantasy / paranormal series. It is also listed as sapphic or queer, and it's by Haley Dennings. It's book 2, so I'm not really sure that much about it, but it says it takes place in New York City, and some type of monstrous force seems to be involved. But that's going to be the end of picks for that week, so let's get into our next week, October 28th. So our first book of October 28th is going to be When I Picture You by Sasha Larnes. I don't know if that's a Chappell Roan reference, but I'm excited if it is. And this is a adult fiction romance, and it's listed as LGBT/lesbian. And the one sentence tagline for this is a big-hearted and sexy rom-com celebrating the kind of sweeping romance that inspires our favorite love song. So maybe it is. The next book we have is Hazelthorn by C.G. Drews. This is a gothic horror, and it's listed as fantasy, and it is young adult. Oh, we have another Evander. I didn't know that name was so popular. Evander has lived like a ghost in a forgotten corner of the Hazelthorn estate ever since he was taken in by a reclusive billionaire guardian when he was a child. And he has 3 ironclad rules. He can never leave the estate, he can never go into the gardens, and most importantly, he can never be left alone with Byron's charming grandson, Laurie. So obviously something is gonna happen mysterious. The next book we have is Moth Dark by Kika Hatsopoilu, and this is a fantasy young adult novel, and it has romance in it, and this is also listed as LGBT/queer. The tagline for this is a timeline crossing romantic fantasy. So a girl is in love with the heir to a throne in a world of darkness, and she must prevent the destruction of all she loves. Very vague, very mysterious, intrigued there. And then our last book for October 28th, and our last book in general, is going to be The Library of Lost Girls by Kristen Phipps. This is a thriller / paranormal horror novel, and it also is listed as fantasy, and it is also YA and LGBT. It's a dark fantasy in which a teen girl, horrified when her beloved sister returns from finishing school a complete stranger, decides to venture into the single place that might hold the answers, the school itself. But what she discovers is a strange and sinister academy where the walls are made of books and contain the secrets darker than she could have imagined. So giving dark academia vibes, interesting there. But yeah, that's going to do it for October 28th. And for all the books that are coming out this month, it looks like the front of the month is very heavy loaded. I think we'll see that into November and December. There's going to be less books coming out, most likely just because we're gearing up again for the holiday season. So everybody's trying to give their books time on the market before that happens. But as always with these videos, there's so many interesting books coming out, so many things that I'm intrigued by. I would love to know if you're planning on reading any of these, what you're intrigued by. This is the first video that I'm making where I've reached 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you so much. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is your chance to, because I will be talking about queer books all year round, as well as doing my other stats related content. But thank you again for subscribing, for engaging, and for listening all the way through. Hopefully I could find a new upcoming book that you want to check out. But thank you so much again for watching, and happy reading.